is Oluwatoyin Kode, and I'm a doctoral student at Bowie State University. And today I'm excited to present my research on gamification in education, and it's a review of challenges and recommendations for effective practice. And basically, this presentation explores how gamified approaches can support student engagement and learning. And it also addresses key challenges, and yeah, I offer my recommendations from my findings. Okay, so this is the outline of my presentation. I will be talking about the overview and objectives of my research, some of the theoretical frameworks that are the foundations of gamifications, some game elements that are incorporated in gamified platforms. I would share some, the mapping of game elements and the theoretical frameworks. We'll talk about methodology, some case studies of gamified platforms. We'll discuss challenges in gamification, recommendations, and finally, we'll talk about the conclusion. So now to the overview and objectives of my research. As stated earlier, this research examines the impact of gamification on student engagement in a learning environment. And I reviewed theoretical frameworks in education that underpin gamification. Since, it's not just gamification generally, it's specifically gamification for educational purposes. So after that, I reviewed some common game elements that you will find in most gaming platforms. I also reviewed some literature to identify highlights from selected case studies of 8 gamified platforms. I explored the challenges such as overdependence on physical rewards and lack of equity considerations, and I identified some major recommendations drawn from my findings. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of the educational models, or like I titled this, the theoretical frameworks for education that gamification puts into consideration in its design. So gamification generally in education settings is built from multiple theories, and we have 4 of them listed here. So for self-determination theory, this emphasizes that autonomy, competence, and relatedness are major conditions that foster intrinsic motivations. That's real motivations aside, motivations from just physical rewards. So when a learner feels they are self-sufficient or independent, that's autonomy, or when they feel they have the right skills and ability, which is competence, or when they feel they have the right connection or understanding of a challenge, which is relatedness, they are more motivated to want to achieve their goals. Then the flow theory explains how optimal engagement happens when there's a balance between a challenge and a person's skill set. So I would use, let's say, a pre-K student, for instance, and there's a game with balloons and numbers on it. And the instruction is to pop all balloons with number 100 on it, for instance. And at the pre-K's level, if that student has not, gotten the skill or knowledge to identify the number 100, the student is going to be frustrated, like, okay, I don't even know number 100. How am I going to achieve this challenge? So flow theory is saying the challenge must match the person's skill set so that engagement can be maximized. The constructivist learning theory encourages exploration and curiosity. And contextual learning, through active participation and involvement. So whatever the challenge is, must keep that person, actively involved so that the person's curiosity, can be built, thereby, increasing engagement. Then the last one is behaviorism. And this focuses on reinforcing certain behaviors through repetition and constant feedback. So together, all these frameworks help us to understand why gamification works when it is applied thoughtfully, when it's applied in the right way, when it's applied to achieve all of these models in the learner. When these theories are the bedrock or like the foundation of designing the platform, the desired results would be achieved. Next, we're going to talk about the game elements that we would mostly find in basically, if not all, most of the gamified platforms that we know of. So we have points and badges, which offer feedback and acknowledgement of achievement. So when a learner receives a point or a badge, it means they've done well. But if a point, for instance, is taken from the points they have already achieved, acquired before, it means they have not met the required expectations. Also, learners can even, share their badges with friends and families just to show their achievements. For leaderboards stimulate competition and social interaction. And in this case, so all players of the game would see the leaderboard. So they would see different names and they know who is winning in the game. So this stirs up a sense of competition and, that determination and the drive to win and achieve a goal. For adaptive challenges, this tailors the difficulty level, keeping students in the zone of a productive struggle. So the difficulty level is matched with the skills the player is expected to have acquired. So, when we are signing up for these platforms, you've entered the information of the learner. Oh, this person is in grade this, maybe grade 5, and the platform has been built in such a way that it knows what the grade 5 student should already know about a certain subject. So adaptive challenges will tailor the difficulty levels based off of the skill sets that that learner is supposed to have acquired. Narratives and role play, increases the immersion by placing learners in engaging and meaningful scenarios. It's like them putting themselves, in that scenario of the challenge and then walking their way through it. And lastly, immediate feedback allows students to reflect, to adjust and improve in real time. And so feedback is given by maybe an applause or a song or a drum roll. It could be anything, but feedback is given like immediately so that there can be, changes and improvement and keep the learner engaged. So all these elements, align with one or more of the theoretical models which we discussed in the previous slide. Okay, now we're going to talk about the mapping of theoretical frameworks with game elements. So this diagram shows the game elements supported by each theoretical model. And we'll see that points and badges appear in all of the models. And what this tells us is that human beings generally, learners, desire to be rewarded and recognized for their achievements. So that's why, we have the points, we have the badges. Even outside of gamification, you have a child who you want to achieve something, even for adults, and you tell yourself, oh, if I'm able to pass this course, or if I'm able to get this certain grade, I will do XYZ for myself. Or you tell a child, I'll give you candy. So that shows the desire to be acknowledged, for our achievements as learners. But then the problem is when the platform, the gamified platform, is now over-reliant on the points and the badges. That's just only physical rewards. And so we'll see that in addition to points and badges, each of the other models have other game elements embedded in them. And so, for instance, we would see that self-determination theory also has adaptive challenges, and it has narratives and role play elements. Flow theory and constructivist theory has leaderboards and adaptive challenges, while behaviorism has leaderboards and immediate feedback in addition to points and badges. Okay, now this is the methodology used in carrying out the research. So to gather insights, I conducted a systematic review of literature, and I used databases like Scopus. I used IEEE Explore and Google Scholar, and I selected only peer-reviewed journals. I also selected the ones that had the full text available and through open access articles, meaning it had free downloadable PDFs. And these texts were focused on gamification and education. The final review, I analyzed 39 studies that had codes around engagement, performance, motivation, implementation barriers, challenges and all. And I want to note that I excluded review papers because this is a review itself. Now, we're going to talk about some of the gamified platforms that I selected during my review, and these are real world platforms, just so that we can see how gamification is applied in practice. So first we have Duolingo, which uses points, badges, and adaptive challenges to promote consistent language learning and vocabulary retention. So Duolingo it basically teaches language. I know it teaches Spanish. Kahoot turns quizzes into real-time competitive games to boost attention and participation during assessment. So it makes the assessment really fun, but in the process, people are learning like you're actually doing a test or a quiz, but then it looks like a game and it's in a competitive environment. So for Kahoot, all players, would see the board to see who is winning, and everybody is really determined to come up and show on the leaderboard. Classcraft transforms classroom behavior into a multiplayer role-playing game that fosters collaboration and thereby builds, real motivation, builds intrinsic motivation as against, just the ones focus on the physical rewards. Minecraft, that's the education edition of Minecraft, enabled open-ended simulations. So it's like you put, you're simulating a real world scenario or something, and it builds creativity. It's also, you can have collaborators that are not even in the same space with you. And Minecraft also promotes STEM problem-solving skills. Quizzes offers self-paced quizzes. So this one, it's not, you're the one who decides when you want to do it, how you want to do it. And then it gives points and feedbacks, and it supports mastery learning, and it improves motivation. Class Dojo reinforces positive behavior in elementary settings in particular. At least I know where I live in the Prince George's community in Maryland here, the school district uses Class Dojo. And, this creates like a real-time feedback to connect students and teachers and parents. So wherever you are, if you see your child has gotten a point, it means, oh, the child has achieved a goal or a milestone or was behaving well in school. And, with that, when the child gets home, you're able to applaud the child and, encourage them. But if you see the child has, lost a point, that helps the parents to have discussions with the child. So Class Dojo reinforces positive behavior. ABCmouse delivers gamified learning also for elementary scholars through interactive lessons and virtual rewards that support mastery and proficiency development. And lastly, Hooked on Phonics uses gamified reading progression, with milestones. There's also repetition to improve fluency and confidence in young readers. So all these platforms show how different combinations of game elements can support varied learning goals in students. Next, we are going to look at the challenges that I identified in the course of my research. And one of the biggest challenges is that most studies on gamification they're short-term. While, the studies often show a boost in engagement, we can't say how long the effect lasts, because if you're carrying out a study, for instance, or maybe using observation and all, you are seeing the child just at that moment. And it's short term because you're only measuring the immediate reaction of the learner without a continuous observation. So there's a real need for, a long-term research or observation of learners to see if these gamified tools continue to support their learning over a long period of time. Secondly, there's over-reliance on extrinsic rewards. So sometimes gamification leans too much on external motivators like the points, the badges, just like you promise a learner a gift if a goal is achieved. And while, this may work for some time, it can also reduce the student's innate desire to learn, if it's not paired meaningfully with other elements or with, real tasks. And it can just lead to a superficial engagement that do not really last long. So also we have inequitable access to technology. So equity and accessibility could be an issue where technology access is not equal. Some students may not, have the device or the Wi-Fi, the internet connectivity that is needed to participate in gamified learning. And when this happens, it's, creates or increases the risk of widening the achievement gaps that, the gamification is actually designed to close. So this is a major issue. We also have ethical and privacy concerns, as we all know that as gamified platforms track data, they track behavior and performance, then data privacy becomes a major issue. So educators must, ensure that they are transparent about the kind of data that is collected and how it's going to be used, particularly in the younger learners. Number 5, we have lack of education training. So many of the educators who are, supposed to help the learners to use these tools are unfamiliar with the tools themselves, or they are not even sure how to, integrate these tools effectively into their curriculum and all. So they either misuse the tool or they don't even use it at all. And so it reduces the educational value of the tool. And number 6, we have a one-size-fits-all design. We find out that some of these platforms don't even have an age range. It also doesn't consider, the issues a child might be, like we have some children on the spectrum and all of that. So, but, they just create a one-size-fits-all design. So it's important to design the platforms with flexibility and, cultural responsiveness in mind. Now to the recommendations identified from my research. First of all, align game mechanics with learning goals and with learner groups in mind. You should design for deep engagement of the learners, not just for, a surface level fun. And the designers should also bear in mind the different groups of learners. So this will solve the one-size-fits-all problems and also solve the over-reliance on extrinsic rewards problem. Secondly, prioritize inclusivity and accessibility using the universal design for learning principles. And with this, the effect of the tool will reach all learners, making sure that all intended learners can access the benefits of the platform. Also, gamified designers or policymakers should offer support for teachers through professional development and trainings so that they can implement gamifications effectively in education. And lastly, researchers should invest in long-term research to better understand how gamification impacts students over a long period of time and, across contexts rather than, just the short-term observation or, the immediate responses of the students. I believe that these strategies will help to ensure that gamification is both impactful to the learners and it's also equitable. So to my conclusion, gamification holds great promise for making education more engaging and meaningful for learners. But its success depends on a thoughtful design of the platform, by balancing motivation with traditional instruction and also ensuring that tools are accessible to everyone, every learner. And with continuous evaluation and inclusive design, gamified learning can, truly transform the educational experience for all students. These are my references.